this tutorial, we will build an authentication system using Laravel Sanctum. Before jumping to the code, I would like to remind you that this video is meant to be combined with other videos. So if you like to combine Laravel with Angular, React, Next.js, Vue, Nuxt.js or Svelte, I will provide a link in the description and you can pick your favorite there. Those videos are already or will be uploaded on YouTube. Also, make sure to check scalablescripts.com. So let's install the packages that we will need. First, we need to install Composer. Go to getcomposer.org, click download here, and you will see here the installation instruction for Composer. So copy these lines to your terminal and you will install Composer. Second, you need MySQL. So go to dev.mysql.com downloads. Here you need to install the MySQL Commodity Server and also MySQL Workbench to see the data in the database. And now let's go to Laravel. Go to laravel.com, click documentation, and we will click here installation via Composer. So this is the command that we will use. I will copy it and I will open my terminal. I will paste it and I will change the example app to Laravel Auth. So now my Laravel project is being created. Let's wait till it's completed. So the project is created. Now let's go to the folder and run php artisan serve. So now our server is running on this port. So I will copy this URL and open a new tab. Now this is our project which is installed, and now I will open with my IDE. My IDE is PHP Storm, so it is good for PHP development. If you don't have it because it's a paid software, you can use Visual Studio Code, so it is the same. Now what I will do is create our first route and the first controller. So the controllers are created inside app HTTP controllers. We have an example controller here which we won't be using. And to create a controller we need to run a command php artisan make controller. I will call it auth controller. So automatically we can see the controller is created for us. Here I will create a function. I'll call it user, and for the moment I will return authenticated user here, which is not authenticated, but to show you how to return a simple route. Now let's go to the routes. So we want to return this to our browser. So go to API. Here I will delete this because we don't need it. And to add a route, we have to use it like this, route. We need the method. In our case, that will be a get method. The endpoint is user. And we need to call now this function in this auth controller. To do it, we have to put here an array where the first parameter is the auth controller itself, quote class. So here we are mapping as a string the path to this file. And the second parameter is the method, in our case is user. So we are mapping the auth controller and the user method. And we are done. So now we can see this authenticated user in our browser. But first I will stop my terminal here and I will use the terminal from my PHP Storm. So php artisan serve. This is nothing, so it's the same. And our endpoint, now I will close these other tabs, will be not users. This is not found, but API/users. I made a mistake, it should be user. So we get the message authenticated user. So as we can see, we got our first endpoint. Now let's connect with the database. So first I will add the database here, MySQL. My credentials for my local MySQL are: the user is root, the password is root, and I will create a database called YouTube Laravel Auth. So we successfully connected, and now we have our schema, which is empty. And let's connect to the schema. Let's go to our env file, and here we have the MySQL credentials. So our database is YouTube Laravel Auth, username is root, and password is root. So we added the necessary configuration, and now we need to create some tables in the database, and we will do it through migrations. So go to the folder database, migrations, and we have some migration predefined. One is the users table, which we will be using, but I will make some changes. And the other two migrations, one is to reset the password. We won't be using it in this tutorial, so I will delete this file, and the create failed jobs table. We don't need them both. We need just the create users table. Here we have the name, the email verify that, we don't need it. We need the password, and we can use also the timestamp. So this is our user. Let's keep it very simple. Now let's run the migration. So here is a server. We don't have to touch the server. Open a new tab and run PHP artisan migrate to run the migrations. And we run one migration. Now if we open the database, we will see that we have two tables. One is the migrations table, which stores all the migrations that are run, and the other one is the users table that we just created. So these are the fields that we added, and these are the timestamps. The timestamps, we can see them. So this is a timestamp. Now let's go to the user model, because we made some changes. I will remove here the remember token. Fillable properties are properties that we need to create. So we need to set ourselves in order to create the user. So right now these are okay. The hidden value is okay. Email verify that. We can remove it. So our user looks completed. Now what is left is to create some users. So in the auth controller now, I will add another function, register. So now let's try to register one user. This will have a parameter here, which is the request. So we will be using a post request, and we will send some data to register the user, and those data will be stored in the request. Now to create a user, so the user variable is equal to user, so the model that we just created, create, and here we will pass the data that we need. So before I add the data, to use a class, make sure to import it. My IDE automatically helps me, which it imports the namespace automatically. If yours doesn't, make sure to add this namespace. We will call a function create, and inside we'll put the data that we need. So we need the name, and to get the name from the request is request input name. We need the email. So we'll get it request input email also. And the third parameter is the password. So all these parameters are the fillable parameters. We can set the password like this. We can set the password, sorry. But we don't want to store the password as it is because we have to hash it. Passwords should be stored hashed. So fortunately we have a function which is hash from illuminate support vacates hash, and to make the password, so to hash the password, we have to call make, and we have to put this request input inside. So that's it, our register user. We have to return it, the user that we just created. So I can remove this variable because it doesn't make sense to have an extra variable, so I will just return here directly the user that we just created, so to keep everything shorter and cleaner. And now let's create this user. First we have to add it to the routes also. So we have this route, I'll duplicate this, and now this will be register. But the method is different. Instead of get, we'll post. So we'll post to the register route and to the register function. So this is our new endpoint. Now we have to test it. To test it, we have to install a new software called Postman. So make sure to download and install Postman, because we cannot test it anymore to the browser. I'll copy the endpoint here, and let's make a request to API/register. This is a post request, and we will send some data. Row here, select, and we will send some JSON. So we need the name, email a@a.com, and the password a. So this is the data that we will send. Let's try to send it, and what we can see is the created user, because we have some extra values like the updated at, created at, and also the ID. Also, if we open the database, we'll see this user is created. The password is also hashed, so we don't know what password it is. And because it's hidden here, we don't return the password in the response. So now we got one user. Now we need to log in with this user. So I'll add another function here, login. Before I write any code here, we need to install another package called Laravel Sanctum. So this is a package that helps us authenticate and makes it very easy to authenticate via APIs. So let's copy this command, open the terminal, and here install Laravel Sanctum. We have some instructions here, so we can publish the provider. Publishing the provider means that if we go here to the providers, we will get a new provider. Sorry, my bad, it's not here, but it's in config. So here we have a sanctum.php file. So when we publish providers, usually means adding files in the config file. So here we don't have to change anything, so everything is correct. But we added some migrations. Do we see the migrations here? I don't think. So we can see personal access tokens table. So we added also a migration and we need to run php artisan migrate again to add this table. So what is this table? This will store all the authentications of the users. When a user is authenticated, a record will be added here, and you don't have to know how this works because Laravel Sanctum will take care of that. So we migrated. This is a middleware which we don't want to add for the moment, so we will use a single page application, so we don't need this. Do we need something else? We don't need also this. We need to add HttpAPI tokens to the user. So go to the user, and here we will add a new trait, HttpAPI tokens from Laravel Sanctum. Also make sure to use the namespace here, so HttpAPI tokens. This is the namespace. So with this, it basically tells us that this user can be authenticated using Sanctum now. And that's it basically. Now let's try to log in. So here to log in, we have a class called auth from Illuminate support facades auth, and we have some functions, and the function that we want to use is attempt. This function will use our email and the password and trying to log in our user. First, let's get the request also here, and inside the request we will have the email and the password. So we can do it like this. So we can set the email, and this time the password we don't need to hash it. This is perfectly fine, but I prefer a easier method, which is request only email and password. So the result will be the same, but it is one line, so it is cleaner. I'll wrap this with an if condition. So this can return either true or false. If returns true, it means we successfully authenticated. But I will add an exclamation point here. So if it is unsuccessful, we'll return a response that will say message invalid credentials. So this will stop here. So if we write code here, it means that we are authenticated. If we return here, it means we don't go here on line 29. We stop here. So we return the message, but we have to return also the status code, because when we return just message means everything worked successfully, but this is not the case. We didn't log in, and we can return the numbers like 401, which is unauthorized, but I prefer using some constants. So it's response from Symfony component HTTP Foundation. We need to import this namespace, and the status code that we want is HTTP unauthorized. So this makes it easy to know what status we have to return. This is the case when the user is not authorized. Now let's get the user when is authorized. The user right now is equal to auth user, and let's return it for the moment, and let's see if this works. So open Postman, I'll copy this endpoint, paste it here, and this is login. We need to send a post request, and the data that we want to send is a@a.com, email a@a.com, and the password is just A. Let's see if we return the user. So first I will put a different password here. We should return invalid credentials. So I forgot to add the login. My bad. Let's go to the routes. I'll duplicate this and we have to add the login route and the login function here. Let's send the request and we got the message invalid credentials and the status is here unauthorized. So these credentials are not valid. If we put the valid credentials, we get the user. So it's that simple. But we won't return the user. We will return a JWT token. That's why we installed Sanctum. To create a JWT token is really simple. So the token is equal to user create token, and here is the name of the token. So you can put whatever. I'll just name it token, and this is an object, and to get the actual string we have to call here plain text token. So let's see what this token looks like. Send request again and we get a string here. So this is the token that Sanctum generates. Still we want to return the token like this, and what we want to do right now is set it to the cookies, HttpOnly Cookies, especially because it's more secure. We don't want to return the token in the front end because other scripts can use this token, and they can use data to unauthorized users. So the best way to store the tokens is by creating cookies. So I'll create a cookie now, and Laravel has already a function for the cookies, which is cookie. And let's create the JWT token. So this is the name, the value is token, and here we need to pass the time. So the time, it is in minutes, so I will put 60 minutes times 24, so is 1 day. You can see here that my IDE already hints that this is in minutes. So we got the cookie. Now how do we return the cookie in the response? So we should use this response function, response, and we have to pass the we can define a message here, success. So this is just a message, but the actual cookie will be passed after the response, so it's with cookie, and we have to pass the cookie here. So with this we don't return the JWT, it's stored in the cookie where the frontend doesn't do anything with it, it just sends it to the backend. So that is basically what we want. And let's log in again, so we can see cookies here, we don't have any. If we send the request again, we get message success, but we store the cookie, which is HttpOnly is true, and this is the value. So we got the cookie. Also we can see the authenticated users in the personal access token. We have here 2 authenticated cases, and this means that Laravel Sanctum is working perfectly fine. So the cookie is here, but still the frontend, so we can use it via Postman, but the frontend needs another configuration in the course.php, config course.php, supports credentials to true. Credentials usually are the cookies that we send. So when we return the response, of course Postman stores it, but the frontend also needs to have this configuration. So with this, the frontend will take care of the cookies as well. So we have the login. Now let's get the authenticated user, and we got it here. It's super simple, just like this. So copy this URL, go to user, and we don't have anything because this returns null. So this means that this returns null. So how do we get this user? So there are multiple cases, and one of them is by using a bearer token, which I don't recommend, but I will show you. So this is a cookie. So I will copy the cookie here. And in the headers, we can pass authorization, bearer, or bearer, I don't know how to spell it. I don't like this question mark. I think the actual value is like this. This doesn't work because I forgot to add something else. In the routes now, the user, I'll move it down. These are public routes, which means users that are not authenticated, they can access it. Now this route will be, the user needs to be authenticated, so we need to add the middleware. So route middleware, and the middleware that we want to add is Auth Sanctum. And here we'll group as a function this user here. So this was what was missing to return the authenticated user. So let's send the request again. Route login not defined. So to return a better message here, we have to add another header, which is x requested with XML HTTP request. So we got unauthenticated, and why is this the case? Maybe I don't need to change the token. Maybe try to log in again. So this is a new cookie. I'll paste it. So this should be like this. So I successfully returned the authenticated user. Not sure what spelling did I made. I returned the message here, this value. So I will log in again just to show you. And I will copy this bearer token and I will paste it here. And now I get the authenticated user. Maybe when it's stored in the cookies, changes something. Maybe that is the case. So we got the authenticated user, but still we don't like the bearer way. Why don't we like the bearer way? Because the frontend needs to store it somewhere in order to add the bearer header to this request. And we want the frontend only to store it via the cookies. So how do we get the authenticated user when we have the cookies here? So this case we have to fake it. What do I mean by that? So go to app HTTP middleware authenticate here. So Here, this authenticate extends a middleware. So this middleware is this function here. I will go to this function, which is located in the vendor folder, Laravel framework src. So this is the location of this file, and I will copy the handle function here. So you don't have to know the location of the file, just write the handle function. Let's go to the authenticate, and here I will paste this function. I will also import the closure, so use closure here. And what I did right now is basically nothing, because this function is overriding the same function. Now here on the header, before authenticate, we will add some configuration. So we will get the JWT token. So I'll make an if condition here. We'll get the JWT from the cookies. So we have the request here, and let's get cookie JWT. So here we'll get the JWT from the cookies, and we will manually set it to the header. So request headers set authorization bearer, and we will attach this JWT. So we are doing the same thing as the bearer before, but this time we are getting the cookies from the JWT. So this way the frontend doesn't need to store anymore this JWT. So we can remove it, and let's see if we get the user. We successfully get the user right now. So the frontend doesn't have to store the cookie. It will have just this HttpOnly cookie, which cannot change, and we are getting the authenticated user. So this is the secure way. Now the last function that we want to add is logout. Logout here, and this is really simple. We'll have the request here also. To forget a cookie, we have to cookie here, sorry. So we have to call cookie. So this is from Laravel. Forget JWT, and that's it. So don't forget also to import a cookie from the packages here. So that's it. Just return the response message success. So the frontend doesn't have access to the cookie. It cannot do anything with the cookie, and the only thing that deletes the cookie is the backend. So here we need to add with cookie the deleted cookie. So we don't need the request here, and we delete the cookie. Let's add it to the routes. This needs to be here because in order to log out, we have to be logged in. So here I will add logout, and this is a post request. So we are logged in here. Now let's try to log out. We'll send a post request to logout. Send, and message is success. Notice that the cookie is removed. Now if we get the user, unauthenticated right now because the cookie is removed. So when we open new tabs in Postman, the cookies will be shared across the requests. So the user is unauthenticated. We have to authenticate right now. So we got the cookie. We don't have to do anything. And now the user is returned. So this is how the authentication in Laravel works. Thank you for following this tutorial. If you have anything, write a comment. Don't forget also to like, share and subscribe. Thank you.